and women will enter their civilizational arc, and women will grow into their civilizational self, just like men grew into their civilizational selves. But nonetheless, this just goes to show that I think we haven't understood gender dynamics at all. And our ancestors, in many ways, they understood gender dynamics better than we do today. And so our ancestors knew that there's something about women where, in a political sense, when the women lead the society in a political sense over the men, and so the women have supreme political power, either through having women in positions of power or through having simps in positions of power that vote in the favor of women. And so our ancestors knew that that is never a good idea. But you need to remember that I predict that women will gain more power, but it is a natural law that society needs to give men more power than women to survive. I send to you grace and peace from our Lord Jesus Christ, and may the Holy Spirit guide us today in this video. And today we're talking about Saint Karen Straughan, and she is an atheist again, so that kind of sucks. She's not spiritual. And so why is she a saint? She's an atheist, she's not spiritual. She's why does she carry this essence of new Christianity nonetheless? It's because she is the redeemed Eve. She is the sane red pill. She is the interpreter and popularizer of evolutionary biology. And evolutionary biology, that's a lot of what we talk about in New Sociology. That's the book I wrote. That's the very important book that I wrote, is New Sociology, and it explains the nuances of civilizational life. And a lot of what civilizational life is about it's about our base instincts and our animalistic behaviors. And so understanding how we are as animals, how we are as a primitive, explains a lot about who we are today as civilized, allegedly civilized people. And Karen Straughan, she's in the tradition of questioning our civility and questioning that we really can move past certain dimensions of biology. And so this is what evolutionary biology is all about. It's all about the group behaviors that are programmed into us as humans genetically. And so how does it affect gender dynamics? And the important thing is gender. If you doesn't matter if you want to hear that or not, whether it upsets you or not, it doesn't matter, because the problem we have right now is not Brazilians or Muslims or anything like that. I mean, after all the research that I've... oh my god, can you go away, fly? There's a fly terrorizing me. After all the research that I've done, is that, and this is really shocking to me, that all the great thinkers, all the great spiritual teachers, like Leo Gura, Alan Watts, Jordan Peterson, Even Carl Benjamin, to a certain degree, they are under the spell of gynocentrism, and they cannot see past their ultimate weakness. Because what is the weakness of every man? What is the fundamental weakness of man? It's not being a coward. Men are brave. It's not men they go to war. Men they run into burning buildings. Men they deal with criminals in the police force. And so men have a lot of strong points. Men have a lot of stuff that is really respectable. And they have values, they have morals that they are willing to die for. They have a nation and people they are willing to die for. They have a family they are willing to die for. But the greatest weakness of every man is a woman. And so if you want to unhinge, degenerate a society from within, you target women and you try to separate the women from the men, and you try to make the women work against the men, because that's the weak point of men, is they're women. And so if the women of a certain nation go against the men of a certain nation, it's going to be hard for the men to stay in power, because almost no man is willing to criticize women or put women in their place once a certain level of wealth is reached. If the wealth of the society is little, if people are barely surviving, then it's very easy to put limits on women, because if we don't put limits on women, then if we are just surviving, if we are close to death, if we have to survive, then it's very easy to stop women in their behavior so that we men are able to survive longer. So then we don't have any qualms about it. But once we reach a certain level of wealth in society, we no longer have, we don't have the excuse, we don't have the justification to limit women, to suppress women, to limit women's freedom. We no longer can do that. The justification for it becomes harder. And women have their own techniques, women have their own weapons, like victimhood and appealing to men's protective tendencies. And so when we have a very civilized and very peaceful and very wealthy society, the women are able to gain enormous power and control. And they may gain total control over the men of their nation. And this is what we see in Western society. Modern Western society is one of the few examples in history, because this is quite rare. One of the few examples in history where women have gained control over the men who built the civilized system, who built this advanced system of technology and human rights and courts and lawfulness and order. Women are able to gain control over that. And so women really, in history, they never had this much power, because men built the civilization, men built these gigantic power structures, and somehow feminism has been able to take that over. And so women are now in charge of these mega structures that men built. And this is a very rare constellation, because in the pre-patriarchal age, I don't believe that women had much power. I believe the power came from cruel and violent men. And then in the patriarchal age, the women still didn't have much power. The power came from strategizing tyrants and system builders and soldiers and honor-based societies. That's the patriarchal age. And so now we're in an age that is very rare, a very rare occurrence that women have the control over immense power structures. And this is what we have to address. I mean, this is the elephant in the room because nobody's willing to talk about this. I mean, no, if you ask all the women will say, women are not in charge. The men are in charge, and no matter how much progress women make, men need to be downsized, and men's power needs to be moderated. And so no matter how much control women gain, no matter how much they dominate men, and I see them dominating most men. I mean, most men are being completely dominated by women now in 2025. And this is a rare occurrence. I mean, this is a very specific constellation we're living in right now. But let me tell you, it's not going to end well. It's not a godly order of things. It's when women stand above men in society, when men bow to women, this is not a natural order, and it's not a spiritual, godly order. It's always something dysfunctional. But that doesn't mean that women shouldn't get more power. I think women are they're destined to become more powerful as our societies advance, as our society becomes more civilized, as the resources for the people become more readily available. I think it's inevitable that women will gain more power. And this is a thing that will happen, and it's okay. It's just that women, just like when men first gained power, just like when men first built civilizations and became the masters of civilization, became the leaders of civilization, they made a lot of mistakes. And so men in the patriarchal age of civilization, men made a lot of mistakes. And men caused a lot of suffering, and men caused war and famine and everything, genocide, slaughter, and battle. And so how can we expect women to step into power of this gigantic system that they never built? How can we expect them to not make disastrous mistakes? But just like men did disastrous mistakes in their civilizational leadership, women will do those same mistakes, but men learn from them, and so will women learn from their mistakes. And women will enter their civilizational arc, and women will grow into their civilizational self, just like men grew into their civilizational selves. But nonetheless, this just goes to show that I think we haven't understood gender dynamics at all. And our ancestors, in many ways, they understood gender dynamics better than we do today. And so our ancestors knew that there's something about women where, in a political sense, when the women lead the society in a political sense, over the men. And so the women have supreme political power, either through having women in positions of power or through having simps in positions of power that vote in the favor of women. And so our ancestors knew that that is never a good idea. But you need to remember that I predict that women will gain more power, but it is a natural law that society needs to give men more power than women to survive. And so men are always gonna have to fulfill the role of authority, and men are the ones that have to prove themselves. Men are the ones that go walk through fire, that get battle hardened, and eventually come out as real men, as mature men, and these mature men can lead society at the very top. That doesn't mean that there are sometimes women involved in governance, and there are oftentimes there are some masculine women that fit well into leadership positions, but not the average women. And so you need to understand that this gender dynamic is so important to civilizational stability that you can't even imagine it. And to change gender dynamics, to change how the genders usually relate to each other and the power dynamics involved, this is a very difficult thing to try to change in any way or try to control in any way. But there's so much energy involved there in the gender dynamics. Gender dynamics fundamentally, gender is a function of sexuality. Sexuality is, besides food and water and shelter, sex has the highest priority of the instincts. It's equal to food and water, and comes even before shelter, comes sexuality. So moderating sexuality, controlling sexuality is one of the fundamental ways of shaping the human being. This starts with our clothing. Our clothing is designed to cover our sexual organs so that we do not become aroused in civilized discourse. So I can see a maiden, I can see a woman, and I may be attracted to her just based on seeing her face. But her breasts are covered, her hips and buttocks is covered. And so this is designed to help me interact with another husband's wife or another maiden, interact with her in a civilized way, where the sexual aspect is taken out and the sexual aspect is buried beneath the clothing and beneath social norms, so that I can interact, the men of the society can interact with other women without the interaction becoming sexual, becoming about status, becoming about attraction. And so that we control this whole attraction game, this whole monkey business, this whole jungle fever that we see in monkeys, for example. I mean, monkeys, the whole social structure is of course defined by sex. It's defined by social status. And social status just means who gets to have sex most of the time. That's what social status is. If you're at the top, you get a lot of sex. If you're second rung, you get good sex. And if you're somewhere below average in the hierarchy, it's very difficult to get sex. And so you have to understand that gender is such a fundamental issue that almost no one is willing to address, because it comes at such a high cost to yourself if you talk about it. Because let's say that you talk about, let's say you criticize women and you say women's power in society is too much and it's causing society to collapse. Well, that puts you in the position of being labeled an inkwell, for example. So you get labeled as, that makes you look desperate. If you lash out at women, because everything is perceived in terms of status, everything is perceived in terms of your sexual rank. And so criticizing women is always a perfect opportunity for other men to defend women, and so gain the favor of women, and so rise above you in the game of sexual hierarchy. And so these great spiritual teachers like Leo Gura, like Alan Watts, they can unhinge the pillars of reality itself. They can question fundamental anchors that we have in reality, and they can turn the whole reality on its head and make us question everything. And they themselves question their own self to the highest degree. And they can question the substance of reality itself, and we may follow them. But nonetheless, they're too afraid to criticize women. That really shows you that they haven't transcended reality as it is, because they say, well, they may say, life is a dream, nothing is real, everything is just a game. It's a sincere game. It's a game of play. We're playing in this reality, and death is not real, and you are God, and we are all one, and it's all connected, and there's no reason to be afraid of anything. But nonetheless, they're too afraid to criticize women, to put women down, to limit the power of women. And that shows you they haven't really transcended the everyday world, because that is the greatest fear, the greatest weak point of any man is sexuality. The greatest weak point of any man is women. And if you're not able to transcend women's approval and confirmation, that really shows that you have not fully transcended the everyday world. And it's amazing that someone like Karen Straughan, she does not believe in God. She does not have. She hasn't had mystical experiences. She's an atheist. She's not spiritual, and yet she has more bravery than someone like Leo Gura, who is a little pathetic man that simps for women all day, that is a little male feminist. Can you imagine? Can you imagine being Leo Gura, being the founder of modern spirituality, being the first modern saint, and still you're a little cuck simp. You're still not able to overcome that. You're still not able to overcome female trickery. Even though you've transcended yourself, you accepted yourself as God, and still a woman can turn you into a cuck, an actual cuck that is not able to stand up for men or have empathy towards men, have empathy towards the struggles of the average man. And this is what real love is all about. The deepest love is the love of the regular man, to empathize with his struggles of the regular man, because those are the ones that truly do not get any love from us. Is the average man, the average man that is just a good man. He's a solid man. He doesn't grape. He doesn't steal. He doesn't, he's not an asshole. He's not egotistical. He's social. He cares about his community, his family. I mean, we all know those men, and they deserve a lot more appreciation that they're currently getting. And I don't care if you label them nice guys or manipulative guys or whatever. I know that there is a big chunk of men that actually have been raised quite well. They are quite obedient to moral standards and civilized behavior, and yet they're being discriminated and not appreciated. But they will be appreciated. These men, these nice men, I don't want to say nice guys, because that has a negative connotation, but what does that tell you about women, that nice guys, the word nice guys has got a negative connotation since feminism. The word gentleman has gotten a negative connotation since feminism, because feminism is really about female instinct. Feminism is really about the deepest instincts. Feminism wants to abuse the deepest instinct of men. Men's instinct to protect women, men's instinct to want to provide for women and make women comfortable and protect them from the trauma of life. That's our deepest instinct, to hold women as these wonderful, pure creatures. But feminism abuses that. Feminism has abused biological mechanisms of men that make men provide for them. And that's where this is not about being a Andrew Tate sort of male feminist, or not male feminist, but an Andrew Tate sort of, he's a feminist. He's what a feminist would be for men. And so if men would be as irrational, emotional, and pathetic as the feminist movement, then it would be Andrew Tate. But this is not the red pill we want. We want the red pill that is sane. We want the red pill that is the red pill that saves us all, because it makes us realize that we can criticize women. We can put limitations on women. We don't have to put women first in every single regard. We can make space for men. We can appreciate men. We can honor men. We can love men. We can love the average man. We can love men as a group, as a collective, just as we can love women. And that's the power of the sane red pill. And that's what Karen Straughan represents. She represents a kind of red pill that is wants men and women to cooperate and be there for each other, protect each other, complement each other. Men and women working as a team, one man and one woman being paired up to their looks match, the looks match of men and women working together as a team over a lifetime, raising children in a set family, the father being involved with raising the children, the mother being involved with raising the children, and a lifelong commitment in marriage to create stable families and a stable family system. And this is what the sane red pill is all about. It's about the deep Christian value of marriage and the deep Christian value of sexual purity for women, and the value, the Christian value of sexual moderation also in men. So the high status men, they also have children. That the high status men don't just have children with many women and then don't care for their children, but the high status men, they should get it. The high status men, they should get attractive women. They should get the hottest women that they deserve because they themselves are attractive men. And I'm not just talking about character, I'm not just talking about morals, I'm not just talking about status, but also the good-looking men, the facially superior men. They should get the most attractive women. I have no problem with that at all, but when they have sex, there should be children being created. Children should be created when the attractive people have sex. It shouldn't be a perversion. It shouldn't be a twisted perversion where the most attractive men have sex with all the women but create no children. It should be the most attractive men have one wife that is also very attractive because they deserve those attractive women, but they have children when having sex. Of course, that's what sex is for. I mean, do I really have to explain this to you? Do I have to explain to you? Do I have to explain to you that sex is for making children? That's why you feel good about sex, because it creates children. There's nothing inherently enjoyable about sex. Of course, our body makes it feel that way because your body cannot differentiate between you wearing a condom or not. And so it feels like, okay, this is it. I'm passing on my genes. I'm creating children. That's why I'm feeling orgasmic. That's why I'm feeling ecstatic. It's because I'm creating children. I'm creating the next generation. But when you put a piece of rubber in between that, and you disrupt the natural processes of nature, you're fooling your body because you feel so great, you're having sex, these attractive people are having sex, but you're not having children, and so the good feeling of sex is not appropriate, because if you're having sex but not creating children, you really should be feeling nothing, because the reason you feel good about sex is because evolutionarily it meant that you do the most important thing in life is creating children. So that's the most important thing in life. And you're trying to circumvent that. Only take the pleasure, but not the responsibility of raising children. And then also the attractive men, they pair up for their whole lives. They pair up with one attractive woman. And then they have children when having sex. And then the very attractive Chad, he has one woman, one set of children from that woman, and he raises those children. And that's what life is all about. Life is not about this jungle fever where one Chad has all the siphons all the children. But that's not even happening because he's not even producing children. He's just fooling his own bodily instincts. And so you can tell that I'm passionate about this because I want sex. I want pleasure to be in its appropriate place. I want it to be as it was intended. And pleasure was intended, sexual pleasure, to create children. So why do the women feel so entranced by Chad? Why do the men feel so drawn to that attractive Stacy? Because that's a really great vassal to make children with great genes, great genetic material, great bone structure. And that's why you're having sex, is to make this new version of yourself. And that's what I'm all about. And this is what all these teachers miss. All these guys that transcended death, that transcended their everyday existence, that transcended life itself, they are unable to realize the importance of gender and the importance of sexuality, and that is the most spiritual subject you can have. The most spiritual subject that is possible to think about is sexuality, because sexuality is the core of our existence. And if you know biology, this is no surprise to you, because of course it is. Of course it's a purpose of life. That's what we are doing. It's recreating. And the smart, intelligent people, those should be recreating. And it's not intelligent to have sex and not have children when having sex. That's not intelligent. You're circumventing, you're jailbreaking your body. And let me tell you, if you're jailbreaking a biological system and you have no awareness of what you're doing, just like jailbreaking your iPhone when you don't know what you're doing, it's a very bad idea, because you can actually break your iPhone forever, and you can break your body with this senseless perversion of sexual pleasure. It is your end. It is your dismantling of your soul and becoming a demon. If you have the protected sex relentlessly with in an irresponsible way, sexual acts in an irresponsible way, and protect it so that the sex doesn't even fulfill its original purpose. It is a perversion. You will turn into the devil if you partake, if you use this technology, condoms, birth control. This is all of the devil. Karen Straughan, she gives us, even though she's not spiritual, she's an atheist, and yet she is more brave than these spiritual gurus that we talked about earlier, because she understands the significance of biological determinism, that we are fundamentally still animals. Feminism is an animalistic force. Feminism is an expression of the natural female nagging the man and abusing men's natural tendency to be gynocentric. And it's not progressive, it's not intelligent, it's pure instinct, it's pure naturalistic tendency of men abused by egotistical and short-term thinking women that will destroy society in the process, because sexual instincts are running wild with no end goal of civilizational stability, but only the short-term gains of women's sexual pleasure and pleasure of jungle fever that women feel. That's what this is all about. It's fun and games for women's sexual instinct and men's inability to stop that sexual submission to women in themselves. And so Karen Straughan, she really brings us the biological determinist. She shows us that these new movements, this supposedly modern world, is monkey business, and it is very primitive, and there's nothing new here. It's just that women are hyper-stimulating men's sexual instincts and manipulating men to the highest degree with advanced technology and incredible strategy, but not for civilizational health or civilizational wealth, but for their own short-term egotistical gains and pleasures. And this will destroy society. And Karen Straughan sees this, and the spiritual masters that came before Karen Straughan don't see this. And that's why she's in the pantheon of the saints of New Christianity, because she has an essence, she has an insight that seems to be just as or even more difficult to attain than the insight of spiritual truth. Spiritual truth questions the whole reality, and red pill truth questions the whole reality of women and gender relations. And Karen Straughan is a woman that Karen Straughan is the example. Karen Straughan is the example that women can rise above their instincts just like men can. And women are able to be rational and logical, and women can redeem themselves and rise above their inferiority. And as society becomes more peaceful and as society becomes more wealthy, women will gain more societal power, and they will make mistakes in the beginning just like men made mistakes with their societal power. But women will make those same mistakes of gaining power, and that is feminism. Feminism is women gaining power, but women are still caught up in their instinctual, impulsive patterns. But now, as feminism has made those great mistakes that will bring society to the brink of collapse, women will learn, just like men, to learn from their mistakes and to suppress their mindless pursuit of instinctual pleasure, and to take up the societal power they gain in the post-patriarchal age. And this post-patriarchal age they will shape as new women that are not just sex obsessed and status obsessed, but that they will become women just like Karen Straughan is. They will become women that strive for civilizational health and the health and stability of the people, of their children. They will fight for a stable system. They will vote for a stable system of that their children can inherit, and they will think in terms of what is best for their children and what is best for society as a whole, because they will realize that what is good for society as a whole will be best, will be the most important thing that their children will go through. So when women really start to care about their children, they will realize that the most important thing that they have to do is keep civilization healthy. And the best way to do that is give men a room and space to, in civilization, to work, to take responsibility, and to lead. And so women will use their power in civilization in the post-patriarchal age to give men room in civilization and to let men lead, but not be tyrannical. And so women will go through their own journey of becoming guardians of civilization. And Karen is the first example of that. Karen is the first redeemed Eve that is able to surpass the inferior nature of women compared to men, and inspire a new generation of women that will fight for men and fight for civilizational stability and fight for their children and the future generations, instead of fighting for their short-term pleasure and impulses. Because they will, just like men once did in the past, they will grow past their childish and immature ways. That's all I got for you today. Thank you for watching, guys, and like and subscribe. You can support me on Patreon if you really like what I'm doing. And I offer psychotherapy and coaching. It's in the channel description. There's an email, my business email, and you can write me on that business email. And I will give you psychotherapy at a good price. And so I'm a clinical psychologist. I have a master's degree in clinical psychology. So that's my credentials, and I'm glad to help you if you're going through a tough time. Thank you, guys. See you next time. See you.